Look at these guys. Look at the four guys on the right. Depending on your point of view, they are either the last best chance for representative democracy or just a bunch of hell-raising loudmouths out to generate attention and ratings. Their business is talk radio, and the group that we've assembled here today are among the best, or at least among the most successful in this business. First, meet Tom Leykis of station KFI in L.A. He's the guy who bulldozed the Cat Stevens albums after that controversial entertainer endorsed the Ayatollah's death threats against the author Salman Rushdie. Jerry Williams, Jerry liked that. Jerry Williams of Boston's WRKO is the guy who led the charge against the Massachusetts state seatbelt law. Now, he specializes in making life miserable for Massachusetts Governor Mike Dukakis. Next week, Jerry is sponsoring a convention for his fellow radio talkers, hoping to establish a loosely knit association of these radio crusaders, one which would work together on issues like the recently concluded successful fight against the congressional pay hike. He had a lot to do with that. So did Mike Siegel of King Radio in Seattle. He's busy right now beating Exxon's brains out over the Alaskan oil spill. While Miguel Perez of Spanish-language station WJIT here in New York, also of the New York Daily News, specializes in issues affecting the Hispanic community. But while these, maybe call them commandos of the airwaves, are experiencing perhaps their greatest success and popularity ever, not all talk radio hosts approve of their colleagues' social activism. John McCullough of Detroit's WXYT, for example. John feels many are just self-promoting hypocrites who get much too personally involved in the issues that they're talking about. While the next guy, who I'm sure you recognize, CNN's Larry King, the dean of Radio Talk, an award winner now heard nightly on 350 stations across this continent, feels that any attempt by radio jocks to band together, as Jerry is suggesting, to promote or oppose any issue is inherently dangerous. Whatever their politics, though, and wherever they stand, the hosts of America's call-in radio talk shows are stirring up a storm of comment and of controversy, and whether or not you approve of what they're doing, they are often getting results. Talk radio. Is it grassroots democracy or just hot air? That's the focus of this edition of Geraldo. You know, everybody with a radio knows call-in talk radio has been around forever, and most often the hosts have taken the side of society's underdogs. But nobody much noticed. The jocks were thought of as kind of entertainers who occasionally got to mouth off about their opinions and about what ails society. But everyone started taking them a lot more seriously, folks. Let's face it, in the last couple of years, in this relatively short period of recent history, some of these radio guys have been wielding power big enough to crush pending legislation and to send some pretty powerful people and companies running. On second thought, maybe it all started with Vietnam. Take a look.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Robin Williams got it down perfectly in the 1987 hit movie. His portrayal of radical GI talk show host Adrian Cronauer brilliantly showed the strengths and weaknesses of the men in the medium. In real life, Cronauer made it his business to shake up the military brass with his bawdy Army talk show. But many in the Army felt he took it too far, and that's exactly the rub. The radio has become a generator of causes and controversy. Radio campaigns headed by outspoken, often abrasive and hot-for-action personalities are actually influencing the political forum. Talk radio crusaders like Boston's Jerry Williams are leading letter-writing and phone-in campaigns that have actually aroused the public to action.
Beltway bashing is back, and that's what we do. We're troublemakers, we're muckrakers, and we stir the pot. And believe me, there's a lot of pot stirring that should be done. Hello, New England. This is Jerry Williams. I'll be with you for the balance of the day.
With hundreds of different radio stations broadcasting these talk shows, the power of the airwave activists is strong and growing. Studio guest Williams joined other radio advocates like Seattle Siegel in crushing the proposed 51% congressional pay raise. Mike urged his listeners to send in a tea bag if they opposed the raise. He ultimately collected over 75,000 of them. Then he even staged his own sleep-in to help defeat the measure.
By God, we're not going to have any of this bull, right?
Conscience of America?
Right.
We're tired of...
Let me hear that music, Sally.
Studio guest Tom Leykis took the mad as hell we're not going to take it anymore approach one step further when he ground Cat Stevens albums into the LA turf. But critics wonder if this was free speech or just another approach to old-fashioned censorship. A recent episode of Fox Television's 21 Jump Street hit on the danger some critics fear is inherent if the power of the talk format is abused. On the program, a campus radio host in search of ratings assumes inflammatory positions on a range of topics. The result in this dramatized version, at least, was hatred and violence.
Are you listening to this, America? Because this is how it starts. First Mein Kampf, then Nuremberg, then Auschwitz.
And now we're back to the Nazi name-calling. You believe this, Dennis?
If it were up to you, Drake, this country would be nothing but white men.
Who do you think built this country into what it is today?
Sure, but on the blood, sweat, and tears of every immigrant imaginable, you idiot. You're blacks, Mexicans, Chinese.
The very same people who are dragging this country down. Face it. Blacks in this country aren't productive. They eat up tax dollars with welfare, unemployment, food stamps.
You're a disgusting pig.
Larry King, is that the danger that the radio talk show host, filled as he or she is becoming with populist support and energy and strength, will go too far?
Yeah, any zealot could be a danger in anything because it's letting something run wild or out of hand. It's a big pie, Geraldo. There's lots of slices in it. There's room for Geraldo, and there's room for Larry King, and there's room for Jerry Williams. There's room for radio talk and television talk. There's room for zealots, and there's room for interviewers. To me, it's a great big glob of entertainment, information, all of it focusing, happening at once. The public has a wide choice. No one person could ever be dominant enough to change a nation. Talk show hosts can take an issue like pay raise for congressmen, which ain't exactly the world's greatest guts, and be opposed to $100,000 a year for congressmen. This is not exactly like favoring busing. This is a national campaign, or to nothing against Tom, but to burn a guy's record who has just said he likes the Ayatollah ain't exactly, you know, a throwback to
Well, actually, he wanted to burn them, but the L.A. Air Control Pollution Board said he couldn't burn them. That's why he bulldozed
No, what
them.
I mean is, but Cat Stevens himself said he was not interested in selling records. There's nothing wrong. It's a wonderful gimmick as long as we accept it as a gimmick. It was a terrific gimmick. Jerry has a great gimmick. All these guys are very good at what they do. Just know what it is. It's a gimmick.
Jerry, is it a gimmick? Why don't you take a position on busing,
Larry
one that is
full of
divided?
bull. That's what he is. He's full of bull. We do hard talk every day. We deal with dialogue. Larry does interviews. He has questions and answers that people call in.
It's called knowledge and entertainment.
We deal in dialogue. You know what I do,
Okay, would
Larry.
you take a national stand for busing?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact...
And parade to City Hall, encouraging people to encourage
This is the most
busing?
aggressive you've been in a long time,
Let me ask
Larry,
you a
so give me a chance to say what I want to
ask
say.
you a question, Jerry. You were opposed to congressional salaries. Tough stand.
No, it wasn't a case
You were
of...
gutsy.
It wasn't a case of whether or not I was opposed to congressional salaries. It was the method which the congressman employed to do it. Obviously, when you go from 89.5 to 139.5 and don't want to take a vote on it. By the way, you want to tell people that since you're in Washington, what you do is you get in bed with the politicians with whom you are supposed to be criticizing. What we did is we saw what was happening, people were angry about it, and we said, here's what you can do. Call your congressman. All they hear from is a great many of the people in Washington who stay in touch in a little oligarchy.
Did you put fairness, put the other side on all the time?
We tried. We tried.
Did you
Many
give them equal
congressmen.
time? You don't have to.
No, as a matter of fact, we called various congressmen, Tom Foley, all of them, asked them if they'd like to be on. Our own congressman in Massachusetts and in the New England area, and most of them don't want to be on.
John McCullough, what's wrong with fighting against the congressional pay hike?
I have no problem fighting against the congressional pay hike. I want to make that very clear. I have a problem with going from a congressional pay hike one week to an Exxon the next week to this, that, and the other thing. Always got to have a cause, always got to be waving somebody's flag. I think we have a much bigger danger in this country of people being totally uninformed. By that, I mean, I think there's a much bigger danger against these do-gooders who are running around trying to control what you see on television by boycotting advertisers, and we get accused of succumbing to advertisers for not having causes on the air. Now, did I make myself perfectly clear or not?
Yeah, I think so. But is Tom Leykis a danger when he says Cat Stevens' album should be bulldozed?
I was in California on vacation when that whole thing started, and I couldn't believe I was hearing Tom on the air, and it was great. And then I heard this guy call in that started the whole thing, and I thought it was marvelous. No, I don't think it was bad. But if you go from bulldozing Cat Stevens records one week to something else the next week, always with a cause, then I think you're playing into the gimmick scene and trying to play the hits on talk radio.
Well, Tom, I think you probably unique amongst the group there on the right, and I mean just on my right because you're on the, you know, anyway, you know what I mean. You admit it's a gimmick, don't you?
Well, yes and no. The Cat
I must say
thing...
that we had you on the show when you were in Phoenix. You didn't look nearly as hip. Now you're gone Los Angeles on us.
That's right.
Hollywood Tom. All right, go ahead, Hollywood.
But, well, yes and no. I mean, there are gimmicks involved. Obviously, to get attention, you have to use gimmicks. I think we learned this in the 60s with Abbie Hoffman and Jerry Rubin and street theater. That there are things you have to do to get people's attention sometimes. Obviously, bulldozing albums is an attempt to get attention, but what kind of attention were we trying to get? Not just the attention of the press. I wanted to get Cat Stevens' attention, and we did get it. Cat Stevens responded. Now, Cat Stevens didn't change his opinion, but we gave it our best shot. Is it a gimmick? Sure it is. Did it accomplish something? I think it made a point.
Mike Siegel, what about going after Exxon? I mean, as Larry suggests in the congressional pay hike, not exactly a courageous stand. Who's for Exxon? Who's for the congressional pay hike?
The issue, Geraldo, is not whether somebody's against Exxon or somebody's against the pay raise. The issue is what forum do the American people have to express their outrage. The fact of the matter is that if it weren't for talk radio, Jim Wright would have sat on that vote. There never would have been a vote. That pay raise would have gone through. The fact of the matter is that if there had not been a national campaign about Exxon, at least we got to meet with the president of Exxon for an hour, delivering thousands of pieces of mail from all over the country to express the outrage of the people. Those things happened because there was a forum for them to respond to.
Did you lead an attack against Ronald Reagan, who proposed the pay raise?
The pay raise occurred...
Ronald Reagan proposed the pay raise. His commission, he proposed it, and George Bush endorsed it. Why did you single out Jim Wright? Why didn't you take on Reagan, who happens to have a high popularity ratio?
Because, Larry, at that point in time...
Reagan suggested it.
At that point in time, Jim Wright had the entire power as to whether or not that was going to the floor of the House.
Why didn't you say, boy, Reagan really goofed?
Wait, Larry, I want you to say it like it is. Is your position that the positions... Hold it, Jerry. Is your position that the positions they are taking are straw men, easy shots?
Easy shots.
That's not the point. The point that there was an effect.
All right, Jerry's next, but we take a break first. We'll be right back. You are my brother-in-law. That's right. You are my brother-in-law's favorite, but I say more than any other single individual in this country, you did more to torpedo Mike Dukakis' campaign than anyone.
I tried to tell Larry King about that in Atlanta and New Orleans. He wouldn't let me on.
Was that fair, Jerry?
Was it fair? You bet.
You beat the
You ought to be
pants out.
real glad Mike Dukakis is not president of the United States. At this particular point in time in Massachusetts, he's trying to unload on us 10 new taxes. Back at home, that was the Massachusetts miracle during the campaign.
John McCullough, doesn't that scare the pants off you, that he has that kind of power, that he did so much to even turn the Commonwealth of Massachusetts against its own government?
It's not the power Jerry had, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm disagreeing with Jerry and Mike it's Tom, on the issue. The point is this: they gave the people a chance to learn what exactly was going on. The fact that Mike Dukakis was lying to the American people about what was happening in Massachusetts needed to be said, and the people needed a forum to get that information.
You buy that, Larry?
No. You think Jerry Williams defeated Michael Dukakis? Are you bizarre?
I think that Jerry Williams did a lot to do. You never listened to this guy on the radio every single day. Mike Dukakis is a bum. Mike Dukakis is a liar. How much can you listen to that and still vote for the guy?
Geraldo, my friend. Remember the show was going to be called Geraldo Rivera Live?
Geraldo Live.
Geraldo Live, right. Michael Dukakis won the state of Massachusetts, which is where Williams broadcasts. You think people in Arizona said, boy, we're out against Dukakis. Jerry Williams is really...
He won it by 4.
Are you kidding me, Geraldo?
Jerry, did you affect the election result in Massachusetts?
I certainly did affect the election in Massachusetts.
You proud of that?
He lost by 4 or 5 points either way. That's not a lot for a guy in his home state where he's supposed to be a big popular man.
Are you proud of that?
Am I proud of it? You bet I am. I'm glad he's not president of the United States. And I'm telling you what's happening
Miguel
back at home.
Instead, we have the president who favors congressional pay raise.
Geraldo, let me respond to the business about why we didn't take on Ronald Reagan and George Bush. As a matter of fact...
Because you like them.
No, we told people what the politically proper thing to do. You see, all of the lobbyists, all the special interest groups, they know what to do. They have lunch with congressmen. They have senators who...
Did you ever knock Reagan?
Let me finish the
Reagan
argument,
proposed it. Did you ever knock him?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact.
Every day?
And here is the problem. You don't take on popular presidents of the United States if you want to get things done.
Correct.
You target...
Now listen to that.
You target the Speaker of the House where the problem happened to be politically. That's where you get it, because obviously you wouldn't get any response from Ronald Reagan.
Let us now
Ronald Reagan was in a daze during his last few months in the White House.
If Jerry...
This is... hold it a second. This is Tom Ellis, television anchorman based in Boston. Tell me about the power of this guy.
This man gives people in his listening audience the feeling that they, by being on his show and by being able to listen to him, are empowered somehow within the political process.
But Tom, isn't he a populist demagogue?
Jerry? Oh, Jerry Williams?
Good, Larry.
I think Jerry just proved my point. We don't take on popular figures.
You know, I want to take umbrage with that. That's just really not the point that ought to be talked about here.
But is it true, Mike?
I've taken on Ronald Reagan many times. I condemned him in 1980 when he proposed $1.5 trillion for 5 years in a federal defense budget that was going to be the biggest defense budget in peacetime history. That was wrong.
Did you remind your audience constantly that Reagan proposed the pay raise that you attacked?
No, and I'll give you the reason why. We could attack him all day long, and Ronald Reagan had no control over whether that pay raise was going through, Larry. I wanted the pay raise stopped. We wanted it stopped.
Larry,
after
pay
he
raise went
proposed
down the tubes as a result of what radio talk show guys did.
The radio talk show guys
You were
defeated
for it. You tell people why you were for that raise.
Because the federal judges that we've lost since this was defeated, federal employees who no longer will... For example, do you know that about 1/3 of the key jobs in the Bush administration are not yet filled because they pay lousy?
Doesn't that fill you with salty tears, folks? Only $140,000 a year. They wanted to raise their pay by 50% with no vote, and they wanted to walk away, those gutless wonders in Washington.
In this case, folks...
Wait. Mike, what'd you do with this? What'd you do with the 75,000 tea bags?
Any ones that were good were given to the homeless in Washington, D.C., as a matter of fact. That's where they went.
Who wants used tea bags?
They're not used. They were new tea bags.
Tom, quick.
There's an issue we're not dealing with here, and that is we're damned if we do in this business, we're damned if we don't. If we take on popular issues where we're magnifying public rage, where 83% of the American people agree there should be no pay raise, well, we're wimps. And if we go on the air and we take on unpopular issues, we're irresponsible broadcasters going out and pushing our own agenda. We can't win.
Let me ask you, hold it. I want to get to Miguel Perez.
You've taken on in which you called irresponsible, that was an unpopular issue.
The Cat Stevens issue.
That was unpopular?
Yes, it was.
People
Absolutely.
favored the Ayatollah.
No, they did not favor steamrolling records, and as a matter of fact, they did not favor us getting involved with Salman
Because
Rushdie.
Cat Stevens said he doesn't want to sell any records.
Hold it, man.
Who would buy them?
Miguel, do you have the same freedom these guys have in Spanish language radio?
Oh, sure. I have the same freedom. I don't think I agree with some of the opinions that have been expressed so far. I don't think you have... there's nothing wrong with empowering the people. And I think that's what I try to do on my show. But I try to keep it, as you mentioned, I'm a columnist, a newspaper columnist. My background is newspapers. I try to keep a very objective point of view.
You don't take a stand?
I take a stand myself, but I always have the opposing side on the show so they can express the other side of the question.
Here's the question.
I think that's what's important.
The island of Puerto Rico is now a commonwealth.
Yes.
That means it's neither a state nor an independent country.
I just did enjoy a show.
It's the hottest issue in Puerto Rico. Where do you stand on it?
The plebiscite in Puerto Rico.
Right.
Well, first of all...
The people of Puerto Rico are going to be voting soon, whether to become a state of the United States or an independent country or to retain the status they have right now. Which one did you take?
Well, first of all, I'm not Puerto Rican, so I think it's up to the Puerto Rican people to decide.
You didn't take a position?
I think that, it end up... If I was Puerto Rican...
Did you say on the radio, I'm for this?
If I was Puerto Rican, I'll say it on your show, if I was Puerto Rican, I'd want independence for Puerto Rico.
Oh, you were not Puerto Rican.
I'm not Puerto Rican.
But you said it anyway.
So I said it anyway. But let me just say this, okay? The issue right now, especially in New York, is who is going to get to vote in the election in Puerto Rico. Not how to vote once they have the election, but who will get to vote. Puerto Ricans in New York, all over the United States, want to have a say in the plebiscite in Puerto Rico.
But they won't.
Many of them, why not? Why not?
Puerto Rico.
Oh, God, let him go back to Puerto Rico, she says. Oh, my God. Does that mean me, too? We'll be right back.
Aquafresh case history, 75.
I don't know much about fluoride, but I do know that I've never had a cavity in my whole life. I'm not an expert on plaque either, but my dentist says that my gums are healthy. I've been brushing with Aquafresh since I was a kid.
Aquafresh, more than cavity protection, triple protection.
Geraldo. We'll be back in a moment. New Jersey face is tasty. Jack Cafferty and Sue Simmons, weekday afternoons on Live at 5.
Are they air commandos or democracy's last chance. No, you didn't really mean send us back, did you?
No, what I'm trying to bring out, if they want to vote for independence or whatever they wish to do, why aren't they living in Puerto Rico?
But you mean the same thing with Irish people on an issue affecting Ireland, or Polish people affecting solidarity?
Are they living there? They should worry about this country while they're here.
Let me ask you. Go ahead, Miguel.
Puerto Rico is this country, ma'am. That's the problem. They're American citizens from the moment they're born over there.
In New York.
They're American citizens. Puerto Rico is part of this country. That's what you have to recognize.
Now,
and that's
picture this.
That's the kind of ignorance we have to try to deal with on the radio.
Fine, maybe I am ignorant in that respect.
Hold on. The only reason this scenario is relevant to today's discussion is that this might have happened on the radio. She might have been a call-in, and she could have said to Miguel, you know, why not go here? And Miguel could have shut that. I mean, that's the only reason. I don't want to get off in this whole...
By the way...
Calder, we're joined by a caller. We have a caller on the phone. We have Ralph Nader on the telephone. Ralph, pretend this is a call-in talk show. You're talking to your old buddy Jerry Williams here. What do you think about Jerry getting involved with this big, powerful AM station, WRKO? It's a big boomer. It covers, you know, half of New England. And Channel 25 and Fox 25 was. But, okay, here he is, Ralph. Isn't this democracy run amok?
Well, it depends how it's done, Geraldo. If the talk show host has all sides presented, it doesn't mean he has to abandon his opinion. In the fight over the congressional salary grab, members of Congress and their aides were repeatedly invited to go on these radio talk shows to present their viewpoints to why they should get a 51% pay increase. They almost uniformly turned down the invitations. And so some of the press, the written press and the national media, began criticizing the radio talk show hosts that they were one-sided. Well, that wasn't their fault. They tried to get all sides. And that's the key. The key is to keep all voices flowing, even though you may have, as a talk show host, a particular hard opinion.
Larry King says, Ralph, that the problem is that very often on the activist programs, that the opposing point of view is cut off. The guy starts talking, all of a sudden, slam, you're a bum, you don't know what you're talking about.
How about people who called in and wanted to express at length disagreement with you and Jerry? Ralph?
They were heard.
Were they, Ralph?
Every day, in other words, there was a lot of opinion expressed.
Well, come on, Jerry, give Ralph a chance. Come on.
There was a lot of opinion, Ralph, expressed
hold it, Larry,
on America's
Ralph, what do you say? Were they heard? Was the opposing
party
heard?
Well, not only were they heard, but I did about 200 of these talk shows on the salary grab, and anyone who called in for the salary grab was not mistreated. Now, if a radio talk show host mistreats someone like that, then I would be the first to condemn it, especially since most of the calls were against the salary grab. You have to treat those who were for it even more sensitively.
Do you see a danger in power running amok?
No, I mean, this is what's most amusing, Geraldo. Nobody talks about Gannett being too powerful with 90 newspapers, television stations, and radio stations. Nobody talks about the New York Times or the Knight Ridder chain being too powerful. I mean, the radio talk shows, I think, are criticized because they allow a two-way exchange. They give telephone numbers of members of Congress. They give addresses where people can write to. That is a different kind of
phone
media.
numbers.
It allows more people to
show where Carl
roll up their
Icahn
sleeves
lives when TWA is. Jill Brooke, you know, a critic of radio, who talks about radio and TV for the New York Post. What do you think?
Well, I think that television tends to rely on talking heads a lot, and radio is very unique because they're dealing directly with the public. So all these people are responding to the public, and I think that's very democratic. And I also think, in response to what Larry said, that the system is strengthened by many voices and many viewpoints. And I believe that each of these people here have certain people that are listening to them because of their points of view. And the points of view are very clear to everyone who listens to them.
John, you run WABC Radio. Why won't you let any of your people attend Jerry Williams' convention next week in Boston, his convention of talk show hosts, hoping to establish at least a loosely organized confederacy of these activist guys?
I think there's a potential in this for electronic mob rule. Ralph Nader just mentioned that Gannett has a whole bunch of papers and stations, and so does ABC. But one thing they don't do is dictate what the topic of the week is going to be. If these gentlemen get together and pick the topic of the week, I think the nation can be whipped up into a frenzy on whatever matter it is before the facts are in, when I think if they want to do it on one station in their city, fine, but the issues ought to develop on their own time and in their own way in other cities.
I doubt that's going to happen. I think that what you're really saying is that this organization that he's trying to spearhead is really about critiquing the radio industry, its strengths, its weaknesses, and I'm sure that there'll be a very healthy, vigorous discussion.
Critiquing is what you think will happen at the
Well, I think that they're going to look at issues, they're going to look at the strengths
Larry, what do you
of radio.
think? You think they're going to critique the radio industry?
I hope that they
There's the National Radio Programmers Conference, attended every year. It's a major conference, Jill. I'm sure you go. There are millions of panels, discussions. Radio critiques itself all the time. Gannett owns radio stations and television stations. Most of these people who are involved in things own multi-things. They're all involved in everything else. And I'm not saying that these voices shouldn't be heard. They should be heard. We need all the Paul Revere's. We need the Licases, and we need the Siegels, and we need the Jerry Williams. We also need to know when they're gimmicky. We need the New York Post, and we need the New York Times. Now, if the New York Post stands up and says, we are doing the same thing every day as the New York Times,
if they push the parameters too far, the public will respond as they always do.
Correct.
If they take it too far, as whether Geraldo did, let's say, or Morton Downey, the public responds, and that is the person...
Well, then what are we on?
All right, I'm sorry.
I'm so sick of that comparison. Hold it, men. We've got to say goodbye to Ralph. Ralph is going. The next issue we'll consider, we have Joe Madison on the phone, a very well-known ex-black talk show host who has been fired because he was too activist. And we'll ask him about the special problems. He was supposed to be on the satellite. We had a satellite snafu. Joe's on the phone. He's next. We'll take a break first. John McCulley, you remember Joe Madison?
Do I remember him? I just saw him the other day, sure.
He used to work at your station, WXYT in Detroit.
Still does weekends.
Well, he went to Philly. Got a job in Philly, right, Joe?
He was commuting.
Oh, really? Doing both? Joe, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah,
but you got fired in Philly, is that right?
That's right. I was fired in Philadelphia. Now, let me take one exception, though, with the introduction of Joe Madison. Number one...
You know better than me about Joe. Good, Joe.
I'm not a black talk show host. I'm a talk show host, period. Talk show and radio, there's no black, there's no white. There are voices. No one up there was introduced as a Caucasian talk show host.
Okay,
You were not...
Let me ask you this, though, Joe.
You were not introduced.
You're a talk show host who happens to be black. Do you think that as a talk show host who happened to be black, talking about black issues, you had the same freedom of speech as your white colleagues up here?
Absolutely not.
So it is relevant, so tell me about that.
I've been told on at least 2 occasions by 2 different program directors, especially after heated conversation or engaging my audience in conversation about racial issues. I've been told on one occasion that, Joe, you're too black. Well, I've said no one ever told Jimmy he was too Greek, or Sinatra was too Italian, or Geraldo was too Puerto Rican. Why can't I then...
Well, the lady in the front row sort of said that, but...
and then just recently here in Philadelphia, I was absolutely banned. I did a midnight to 5:30 show from January until just the beginning of May. I was absolutely banned for... I could never talk about any racial issue. I could not talk about Ron Brown's appointment as the first African-American chairman of a major party. I could not talk about the incident in Central Park. I could not talk about Howard University demonstrations. I could not talk about South Africa and Winnie Mandela.
The reason being what, Joe?
The reason being that they were getting letters that I, in fact, were racist. Example, when your show came on with the skinheads, it was a hot issue on all talk shows. I had skinheads who would call in and would say all types of derogatory things about blacks, Jews, you name it. One skinhead in particular, I chewed him up, pinned him against the wall, got a shovel, buried him, stomped on the ground, and said, I don't want to hear that kind of talk anymore. It's not necessary on this kind of program.
Let me ask John in the front row in WABC. You got any black talk jocks?
No.
Why not?
Why?
We hired...
in a city with 1.5 million at least.
Correct.
citizens.
We actually, for what it's worth, we have our eye on one on another station. We have one of the few... Wait a minute. We have one of the few... Pardon?
I said, that'll make him very happy.
Well, that's how things work. I mean, things, hey, you know, things work in their own time.
All right,
we have the only...
Be real.
The only full-time...
Is what Joe Madison is saying correct? Is there, amongst your, at least management, a perception that these racial issues are too hot to handle?
No, because we talk about racial issues all the time. We're a very controversial and opinionated radio station.
Now, keep in mind...
We have the only female full-time, serious, primetime talk show host. You know, you hire who's good. I don't mean...
There's a big there's a big ooh and ah out there.
Who's good, and there are no established...
What'd you say, Miguel?
Is that implying that minorities are not good for a radio?
No,
that we're not qualified?
Hold it, let's put John on the spot. Joe Madison, you looking for a job?
We hire...
I think WABC may be looking for a guy.
It's not a question of am I looking for a job. I've been taught a long time ago, and that is that you find some work that you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. It's not a question of hiring the person who's good. Let me give you an example at a station I worked for, where I have been on the air as a weekend fill-in for almost 10 years. I had an individual who was hired in drive time, early morning, the most expensive time in radio, who never had a minute of radio experience in his life. He was not hired because he was good. He was primarily hired because he was a former county prosecutor and had a popular name. Now, he didn't last, but neither was I given the opportunity. But don't get me wrong, 75% of my audience is white. It always has been since I've been on air. I'm not a black talk show host. I'm a good talk show host, and I'll prove that no matter whatever happens.
Okay. Larry King, I introduced you as the dean of the genre. Do some people have more freedom of speech than others? Is that the reality?
Well, we who have access have more freedom of speech. You and I have more freedom of speech than John Jones on the corner. We absolutely do, Geraldo, because we have our own programs. We have our own programs through the deign of others, not through ourselves. The people at CNN and Westwood One Radio and Gannett newspapers and USA Today and the Chicago Tribune choose to give us an outlet that they could take away at any time or when the contract... No, they could take it away tomorrow. They'd have to pay us, but they could take us off the air tomorrow. So that ruling class is the ruling class of America, and they happen to be diverse, too. Now, blacks don't have that entree yet, and that's one of the saddest thing on earth. I would like to see Jerry Williams take a national stand for busing, for Puerto Rico choosing its own independence. That's a stand. Blacks should be heard.
Why is Larry always picking?
I don't know. I'm only picking on.
Why don't you guys have dinner after the show? We got to take a break. We'll be right back.